Welcome to Our Jewish Roots.
The book of Revelation has been a go-to source for a long, long time. Individuals trying to look at what's happening in the news on the one hand and to look at what's happening in the good news on the other to see if there's a correlation. Well, here we want to peek behind the veil and look at the visions noted in the apocalypse. Is the word that was written yesterday speaking for us today? I think the answer to that question is yes in so many ways, though personally more a professor than a prophet. I'm mindful of the fact, as I said at the very outset of this introductory segment, that people of faith have been thrown up against it for the longest. And indeed, when Revelation was written, those believers found themselves pressed amidst the turbulence of trying times. But it wasn't just then, it was believers from all times, going back to Abraham, who's on a precarious journey experiencing turbulence and disorientation. Isaac, Jacob, they all did. David, thrown up against wars, the precariousness of human experience. Not just men for that matter. Oh goodness, women. I mentioned Esther to speak of her. There she was. For such a time as that, when the world for the Jews was about to become unglued, but there she was. Oh, God has his people in different places, not just Esther for such a time as this or for such a time as that, but similarly prophets like Daniel, who envisioned wars and beasts and the destruction of a temple and global upheaval. Ezekiel experienced that and gave voice to that as well, but he envisioned a world over the horizon, a new temple built. He sees God making his entrance afresh on the stage of the human drama to sort things out at the ragged edge of time. We're told here in the literature in verse 7, look, he is coming with the clouds. Every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. And here we're harking back to a text in Zechariah, where the author, the prophet, it gives voice to the fact that there'll come a point in time when people will turn to him whom they have pierced and mourn. It says as much in the literature. John in verse 9 is represented as a fellow partaker in the tribulation and kingdom and patient endurance that is part and parcel to walking with the Lord. The word tribulation is a fascinating word from the Latin tribulum. It's the pitchfork that was used by ancient agrarians, by farmers. They would put the fork in the hay and throw it up in the air, and the wind would separate the wheat from the chaff. The understanding is that tribulation has that effect of sifting and purifying and making ready for the final product. When we look at these various churches, these congregations, we're here at the western edge of what would be Turkey today. Ephesus was a major city in that world. You've sent me there, viewers. We filmed there on a number of occasions. A fascinating world city in its day, one of the most significant ones in the Roman world. But there are outlier cities as well, fascinating in their own right, and congregations were established there. Here in Pergamos, not far off, he says in verse 13 that they're doing okay, they're holding firm, but there's some problems. They hold to the teaching of Balaam. And here we're looking at a story in Numbers, Balaam and Balak, if you can recall the story. And there's a story here of a prophet who suggested, who told a king, Balak, he said, listen, I cannot get God to turn away from these people, but I can get these people to turn away from God. And you know how you can get men to turn away from God? Women. And lo and behold, they were beckoned through sexual immorality. It's noted explicitly. It's one of the more famous tools in the devil's toolbox to dislodge people from faith and virtue. Moving on in verse 18, there's another message to the Messiah's community in Thyatira. Thus says the Son of God. It's an interesting term that's used, Jesus, Yeshua, being the Son of God. He says that you tolerate the woman Jezebel. We're speaking figuratively here, and it presupposes some understanding of the Older Testament. You might recall Jezebel is bad to the bone. Bad girls of the Bible. She's one of the worst kiddies in the litter. She married a rather sheepish, docile, acquiescing king. And she was just out of control. We're told here that those that mess with her and with all that, with sexual immorality, will be thrown into a sickbed. And those who commit adultery in great tribulation. When things get bad, people get discouraged. They want to drink. They want something to take their mind off their mind. Here, believers are beckoned, be faithful to the Lord, even amidst the difficulties, even amidst trying times. Walk with Him. This is one of the key messages in the Revelation. And we'll be looking more at the messages therein as we look at Revelation, looking at unveiling the visions.